What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Friday Morning Freestyle. If you would like to learn, if this is your first time and you would like to learn more about what Hard Knocks Talks is about, there is a comment or there is a link in the event overview where you can click our link tree and see all the fun things. This episode is also brought to you in part today by Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Mum Stop the Harm. We're going to learn a little bit more about them in a little bit, and if you want to go ahead and click some of the links in our event overview, you will see everything they have to offer. But for now, let us bring in Marie.
Morning, Dan.
Hang on, I got to figure out the buttons. I'm having a technically challenged morning today. So my screen up here is saying that it's waiting for a camera, but also we are streaming live to Facebook somehow. So technical things are amiss, and it's funny because every time I bring on a mom from Mum Stop the Harm who has tragically lost someone, it always seems as though we get small technical glitches, and I know we've talked about this before, but oftentimes it is said that, oh, that's my son or that's my daughter looking down on us. So what's up, Kelly? Thanks for being here.
What's up, Kelly?
Yeah. So why don't we start out? Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Excuse me. My name's Maria Giridis, and I hail from Saskatoon. Dan and I met a number of years ago, a few years back anyhow, when he started this venture of his, this very successful venture.
Through my mother, actually.
Through your mom, that's correct. And I am a community member who had a long career with the Crown Corporation and raised a family. I currently look after properties for my father-in-law. I've got a couple pets. I am also the chair of the board, the national board for Mum Stop the Harm Canada, a role that I've just taken on as a vice chair for a few years. And one of the original members, I think about 13, 15 of us got together just outside of Kelowna back in 2017, 16 or 17. Gosh, I don't even remember now. And started the organization. And this is what I do. I do this. I look after my family and try to dispel the myths and create some supportive environments for families that are suffering with a collection of a lot of other people across Canada, because sadly we have grown exponentially, and that wasn't our plan. Yeah. Like you, we'd probably rather be out of business.
Yeah.
But we're not.
We could sail off into the sunset knowing that we've cured substance use challenges. Yeah. Sadly, I don't see an end to that, but I do see an opportunity to move towards a safer way.
Yep.
Yeah. Whatever that might look like. So tragically, you lost your son in 2015, and you continue to live with your other son who is challenging, and then he finds different ways to maintain a better life, and then goes back and forth. So tell us about your why. You lost your son. How long was it after his passing did you realize something's got to change?
Oh, about an hour.
Hmm.
The other son, I should add, and I'll never say his name because as a young adult, that's his privilege to whether he wants his name shared or not, and he doesn't at this point in his life. But he's doing absolutely amazing right now. I'm so proud of him, and he has been the last couple of years. Has been just completely stabilized. However, that's another story. But we had watched this really effective boy, the one who's still with us, go down an incredibly difficult path was completely unknown to us. It didn't happen to families like mine. It's so dumb at the time, but you didn't know what you didn't know.
Was that your thought process when this first started happening? This doesn't happen to people like us.
Well, it doesn't. We had a stable home environment, what we thought was stable. Everybody has a little bit of a, messed up, who doesn't have issues?
It's good to have a little bit of chaos. I mean, it pushes you forward.
Is it? If it's not good, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we had a pretty stable home environment. The kids didn't want for anything. My husband's a professional. I had a great income. We had a great home, a good neighborhood. They had all the sports they wanted to play. Nobody went without anything. And then it was at a time, though, when any kids born between that 1990, 98 year, they really, really ended up being thrown into a place where recreational drugs had suddenly prescription pills were becoming recreational, which was so foreign
Mm-hmm.
to what my environment had ever been like.
Mm-hmm.
What was a kid doing snorting a pill? My God.
What did you do?
When I was a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, smoked weed. We drank a lot. We tried mushrooms.
We
You know,
dropped acid like normal people.
oh, you know what? And I tried acid too growing up.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be in a little more control.
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing harmful, not that it did us any good, but experimentation was a part of the generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some of us, anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
I love to have fun. I love to party.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol in excess at the time as a kid. So all of my conversations to my kids centered around, of course, my own experiences. You know, is weed harmful? It can be,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you're at from from the perspective of your body chemistry, right? It can be triggering for some things, but for some people it's completely benign.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of us, all it does for me now at this point in my life is has me forage the fridge and go back to sleep again,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need help with either, so I don't
So,
bother.
so I was gonna say, so was that an admission that you're still smoking?
No, I do on occasion,
Mm-hmm.
but Dan, I kind of if it's more like if I get a really, really bad headache,
Mm-hmm.
then I will.
Hmm.
If I get really, really sick, then I will. Like if I'm nauseated,
Mm-hmm.
it works super well for that.
Mm-hmm.
But from a place of function, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an everyday. I couldn't use it that way at
Yeah.
all. I
Yeah.
choose not to.
Yeah. It
Choose
didn't.
not to.
It never served me well either.
No.
So you said that within the first hour of your son passing,
Yeah.
you realized that something needed to change. Now, what was it that brought that realization? Was it the way that the services came to you or didn't come to you?
You know what it was is that I had one son deeply invested in a drug,
Mm-hmm.
and I planned his funeral in my head so many times because he was living not just, I didn't understand the dangers of the overdose side of it to the extent that I should have at that time, but I knew that the lifestyle that he was involved in
Mm-hmm.
was going to put him in jail. He always said himself, there's three ways out: institutionalization, death,
Mm-hmm.
or into some kind of a medical facility to be able to make things happen for himself. So I watched that happen. Then suddenly I get a phone call one morning and I'm out of town and my other son has died. What?
Were they just like that on the phone?
Well, it was my ex-husband called me.
Oh, right,
The
right,
father
right.
of my two children phoned
Mhm.
me and said, Kelly died. But not like that. He was screaming it in the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, you mean, I just thought he said the wrong name.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I wanted either one of them to go. It's just that it's like watching somebody you love be stricken with a really heavy set of cancer and they're stage 4 and that they're on the edge, and then get a phone call and your other kid has died of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And you, what?
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that happened, anger hit me. Anger, sorrow, pain, frustration. Why were our kids dying? What the hell's going on? I had two friends who lived less than a kilometer from us who'd both lost their kids within the same 6-month period.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't.
To the same substance?
Yes, all fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't getting it. I didn't understand where it was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand the why kids were doing it. It made no sense to me. And I knew the only way it could, and the only way we could possibly prevent other families from going through the same tragedy, was to learn enough myself that I could help the others understand the why, the what, the who, the where, the how.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me nuts. I was crazy. I'm kind of typically a little crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but
I mean, only people that are typically a little bit crazy really show up in my studio. So.
yeah, well, that's good to know. Good. I'm in good company.
Yeah, no, you fit right in around here.
Yeah.
You're one of us.
But anyhow, at the end of the day, that's what drove me to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Was there was something insane going on,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't seem to understand why.
How did the way you treated your other son, the one who has been struggling and was at the time, did the way you treated him change when Kelly passed? Like, did you like go in torches blazing saying, you got to quit this right now?
No. I knew that if I had started to blame him, I would have buried two kids.
Oh, so
I
you realized that right away.
right away.
Okay.
And I can tell you, most certainly, the people around me didn't agree with what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I took and put my arms around him and did everything I could to support him emotionally and keep him safe. And that's self-preservation, Dan.
Yeah.
I figured if he died, I was done. I
Okay.
had I had two more other kids at home to look after. I had a marriage to try to keep together,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really, really difficult for other people to understand why I did it the way that I did it with my son.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't I and we and through Mom Stop the Harm, when we started to get together, it was something that we said you needed to do. What is it? The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yes.
And that's what that boy needed. He needed to know somebody was in his corner. Now, when he was in really active substance use, I was always in his corner. Certainly there were times when we had all out screaming fights,
Mm-hmm.
but I made sure that he had food. I made sure that he had a coat. I made sure that he had somewhere to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and to the detriment of me a lot of the time, but I didn't want him to die. And I knew that if I went that route, he was gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so you were practicing harm reduction strategies before you likely even really knew what harm
Yeah.
reduction was or that it was even a thing.
Yeah.
So, and we can speak more about that later about the several layers of harm reduction. I mean, it's not just, these things that we've been hearing in the media over the past years about like safe supply and decrim and all of these
Hmm.
things, but it's housing, it's having somebody's basic needs met, things
Yeah.
like that. So did he improve? Like once you had this realization, you start getting into his corner more. Did his situation improve?
Well, he had about 6 months prior to Kelly passing away.
Mm-hmm.
He uh, had he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Mom, there's this program on 33rd Street, the methadone program, and they're taking new patients, and I want to go talk to somebody there." Well, I didn't know if I was driving him to 33rd to get drugs or not.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "Give me the name of the counselor there." Phoned, found out for sure this is a thing. So he had already got to a point where he was so sick and tired of
Mm-hmm.
being sick and tired.
Donna and I accessed that program on 33rd too, Mayfair Drugs.
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's where Donna and I went when we were
yeah,
on the drink.
yeah. They were wonderful
Mm-hmm.
there. Anyhow, so he went there, and that's when he had started his own journey into trying to get himself to a place where he could. And the great thing about having really good medical assistance while you're going through, um, leaving that world, is understanding what's going on in your brain. Because
Mm-hmm.
I watched the suffering that he went through, and I know that you would have felt it too. Because it's like it was as though somebody took his head and shook it up,
Mm-hmm.
and he tried to come off of all these substances that his brain had chemically gotten very, very used to.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't as though you could just remove them and
Mm-hmm.
everything just slid back into place like a Lego.
Well, and the thing that is worth talking about is like it's not that your brain is used to the substances. It's also your brain is used to this lens on reality that the
Okay.
substances give you, right?
Yeah.
And now that's gone and everything's new and different and you got to do stuff. Like things are real,
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
there's all of that in learning to live without that, that
Right.
pink shade that these substances
Right.
try to put over you.
So the layers and layers
Mm-hmm.
of battle that someone needs to go through to be able to get to a place of stabilization after being so invested in these drugs, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
watched him, and when Kelly died, often you see with persons who suffer, they go one of two ways. They either go completely one direction, it it takes them over, it takes them down, and
Mm-hmm.
they die.
Mm-hmm.
Or they get so determined that they need to do something, and that was what he decided.
Mm-hmm. Some might call that the gift of desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he decided that he couldn't have his little brother, who he adored, die and him disrespect his memory, his life, his being, because he was the greatest kid. He couldn't have, he couldn't disrespect what was left of his brother by continuing down that path.
Mm-hmm.
He had to fight it for him and
Mm-hmm.
for himself, and by this point, he had a son, and it was It wasn't, I just knew I had to support him in whatever he was doing.
We've got Kathy Smith in the chat. Good morning, Kathy. Yeah, we're having some troubles with the chat. Sorry if you can't see it, but Kathy shares she lost her daughter Jennifer to fentanyl poisoning too in 2021. We're glad you're here with us today, Kathy.
I'm sorry, Kathy. It's the
Yeah,
toughest. Nobody can explain that injury to your soul.
yeah, yeah. So how has your like when you first learned about harm reduction, when you first learned that people were trying to get a regulated like I I'm gonna out myself here. I struggle to call it safe supply,
Hmm.
but that is what it has been coined, and people we're talking about language. It's important we use language that people can relate with. But
Hmm.
I kind of prefer the term like in my own mind as regulated supply.
Yeah.
So when you first learned about these things like the decrim and the advocacy around safe supply and all of these other things, safe consumption sites, how has your opinion on those modalities or those strategies changed in from when you first discovered them to today?
They've changed considerably. I
Mm,
should also say, Dan, with respect to you saying safe supply, regulated supply, I think that when you have gone through what you've gone through as
mm.
a seasoned drug user, you get to be the language and you get to choose your
Yay!
language. Yeah.
Everybody do what I say.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you get to, you know what? You've lived that life
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
get to decide what your story is.
Hmm.
And far be it from the rest of us to tell you what language you should use.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd call me, but uh, I'm looking in from the outside from a lot of it, but my lived
Hmm.
experience is different. However, uh, I didn't know or understand what was going on in other countries that had dealt with rampant heroin use,
Hmm.
or who had established systems of care already. And there were great European countries. I didn't understand about those. I didn't understand what does safe consumption mean and why would we want safe consumption sites?
Hmm.
What do you mean we're going to provide people with things to be able to make drug use safe? Why would we want to decriminalize anything like this? And so what I started to do, and all of us started to do, because you get kind of fearless when you lose a child.
Yeah.
And I started making phone calls. I didn't care. I phoned anybody and everybody. I didn't care if you had a triple PhD and you were the king of Thailand. I was going to phone you and find out what the heck.
Hmm.
Tell me what you know. Why? 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 Go to the experts.
Hmm.
You know, no more coffee talk. No more sitting around a table and learning it from a bunch of
Yeah.
people that didn't understand it in a professional light.
Hmm.
So again, seek first to understand, right?
Hmm. Hmm. And what are some of the things that you learned? Because I know there's a lot of agencies and advocacy groups out there that do advocate
Yeah.
for just like an open the floodgate. Everyone can have as much drugs as they want.
Yeah.
And then of course, there's on the other end of that spectrum, there are those who think that all of this should be abolished and nobody should have a regulated
Yeah.
supply.
What I learned was that, and you have to go looking for the information.
Hmm.
It's not going to fall on you.
Ain't that a
Um,
tragedy?
Pardon me?
Ain't that a tragedy?
Ain't that a tragedy?
Hmm.
Yeah. And we have to do a better job of that.
We're working on it.
Right. What I learned was that if you go to organizations like there's Kaput, there's Dolph, there's lots of different organizations of people who are that have had a life of investment and
Hmm.
still use a lot of them. Um, they're going to tell you what they know, and their experience is um, there's very it's bar none
Hmm. And what they need, they're going to tell
that
you what
what they
they
need,
what they need.
and that's one entity of
Yes.
it.
Hmm.
But for me, kind of a blue, white collar, a little bit privileged, I have to admit it, right?
Hmm.
I'm a white woman
Hmm.
living a good life.
Hmm.
Um, I needed to make sure that it wasn't just like my story brings pain to people. I open doors with my story, but I need more than a story. I need more than a life experience.
Hmm.
I need to get a professional's thoughts. So I started to look at the medical community. I started to look at the experts around the world,
Hmm.
and I started to read and read and read and make phone calls and find out what they were saying, what research was saying. These are people who've dedicated their lives to figure it out, and they're onlookers from the outside in.
Hmm.
And there was some, one of them that really caught me was this global, can't remember the name of it now. It's an organization that's a global organization that looks at drug use or harmful substance use um, from around different places in the world. And it brings in really, like, who's the guy that had Virgin? Michael Brandon, I think was his name, or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyways, guys like him, people who were leaders maybe in different rights in the world, who were brought together with experts to understand why, and they put together this incredible document on what we needed to do. And so it wasn't just, a single phone call to a bunch of people running an office off of a side street. This was the best of the best, and the experts in the world were telling us what we needed to do. And then I also found out how political it was
Oh man.
as time went along.
Yeah, no, where there's money, there's politics. Okay, let's take a quick break. We're going to hear a few words from Stronger Together Canada, and then we'll continue on.
We've watched our children walk away. We've felt hopeless, powerless. We are moms, stop the harm. We are not hopeless. We are not powerless. Stronger Together Canada is a national network of peer-led support groups to help navigate these challenges. If you're coping with a child's substance use, reach out to www.holdinghopecanada.org. If you've lost a child to drug poisoning or overdose, www.healingheartscanada.org. We're here to help, and we are stronger together.
All right. So, Stronger Together Canada is also looking for facilitators. So, if you see something you like, and it's Canadian, right? Like, this isn't like an American program at this point.
It's Canadian.
Canadian, right? So, if you want to facilitate a Stronger Together Canada group, either the Healing Hearts or the Holding Hope, there are 2 links in the overview, and you can check them out, learn more, get in contact, and they'd love to hear from you. So, how has your advocacy, how has the things that you have learned along the way about these strategies changed the way that you deal with life at home with a loved one who is using?
What it did is it confirmed for me that I was on the right path, that I was doing the right thing for my son by my son. Mm-hmm. I know that, there's so much to say, Dan. Mm-hmm. So you and I have talked a number of times about where we have a group of people in one corner who are really deeply marginalized, deeply invested, who need stable housing, who need food, who need good mental health care. They need wraparound services. And then we have another large group, which is really in Saskatoon last year, over 570 people called 911 for overdose. And only one of them was ever called to Prairie Harm. So it tells you how they're effectively working to keep that community alive and manage the needs there. Mm-hmm. But there's 560 plus that went somewhere else in this city to an overdose call. There wasn't 570 of them downtown. The majority are going to basic homes. Mm-hmm. So what I learned was that, and many families do this, especially from the white and blue collar world, is they want, as long as you're stable, you have a house and a couple of kids and a car and a job, you're good.
Yeah.
That works. We're fine. And we don't give substance use, problematic substance use, or invested substance use, the stuff that's really taken that brain and messed it up, and, like you said, taken and created that wall between reality and life and real life, and taken the veil away. But we don't give people enough time to do it at their own pace, because we're looking after us. I'm going to sleep better at night if I believe that my son has a job and a kid and a house and he's paying his bills. But we forget something put them in that spot in the first place, and coming out of that place is deeply, deeply difficult. Mm-hmm. And we have to let them do it at their own pace. And sometimes, you're slowing yourself down to say, let them figure this out, or you got to slow them down and tell them, because they might be trying to live up to your expectations as well. Slow down, slow down,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And what I've seen happen with my son is that he also was injured quite badly. Still waters run deep, and it was a couple years into his methadone program, a couple years after Kelly had died. He was literally at a 7-Eleven or a Mac store picking up a Slurpee, middle of the day, and some guy walked in from his past who was angry at him. The guy was intoxicated and ripped his shirt open and said, "Let's go." And my son went, "Please, like, just leave me alone. Let's just move on with our lives." And it wasn't even over money. It was actually over a girl.
No.
May as well have been money. Is that what you're
May as
saying?
well. I'd rather been money, really.
Yeah. Anyhow, he said to the guy at the store, call the police. And the guy said, "Get out of my store, get out of my store, get out of my store." So my son left the store to go back to his car. He only lived a few blocks from there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't realize there were two of them out there. They got him on the ground. He had gotten the other guy on the ground with him, but they came down on his head with either, we don't know, it was an axe or a tire iron. We're not sure.
Damn.
So he got an acquired brain injury that day. And it took him a good 2 years, 3 years now to recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
We had neuropsych assessments done. We had different things to try to measure what was happening in his brain, and his short-term memory was so affected. However, happy to say today, he's just doing amazing, and he's coming back to that place. So the point is that take joy in the simple little things when your children are coming out, and don't push them too hard. You could live to regret it, because that's the recipe for relapse.
Yeah. Got a new view, better you in the chat. What's going on, man? Good to see you. He says, happy to have made it to a Friday freestyle. And Aaron, haven't seen you for a minute. Good to see you. Thanks for being here today. Twinkle says, I go back and forth on safe regulated supply versus abstinence. And that, you know what? I go back and forth on not necessarily whether a safe or a regulated supply should exist, but I go back and forth on how it should exist. As far as it being available to the masses, it being heavily like regulated and being like a medical strategy as opposed to just being able to pick it up wherever. I'm starting to lean more away from that, if we're being honest, as far as like just having it available to everyone. Like, we don't want to reduce the perception of harm really to people who may not otherwise try it. Like, I don't think that grape flavored fentanyl, available at these places would necessarily be a good thing. Now, far be it from me to speak in absolutes.
Yeah.
Though, we've also got, who do we've got? We've got Aaron. Thanks for the comment. Aaron says, you are using your voice, my friend, and that is very much needed in today's world. Thank you very much for that.
For this and that. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
The good man. Dan, the good man.
So yeah, we're having some problems with the comments. I'm seeing a whole bunch flooding in now that we'll get to a few more. But yeah, we're having some problems. So if we don't get to your comment today, I apologize. We're doing the best we can, just like every other day.
Can I comment on something that when the person, I'm not sure how they identify, but the person said, abstinence versus a safe regulated supply.
That's Twinkle.
Yeah.
Her name's actually Twinkle. That's
okay.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it is.
She sent me her ID one day because I was like,
that's a very sweet name.
Yeah.
So we have to advocate for any form of recovery. If abstinence is the thing that brings light and life to you, then let's do abstinence. If something stabilizes you to get to that place where maybe ultimately you don't even have to have abstinence as a goal, but you might find that it's a shifting goal. Life is that way. It doesn't matter. We diversify in everything, whether it's a job, whether it's farming. But I think recovery is a very diverse field. You start out with one idea, and I've seen this in my son, is that what he thought recovery would look like for him has totally evolved over time. And now, he's pretty much abstinent. He's not completely. He likes to smoke weed every now and again. And he,
here's Interesting thought. So was he at any point married to the idea of becoming abstinent? Was that his goal? And when he didn't achieve it, he felt like a failure? Was that ever a
No,
dynamic? No?
no, I don't think abstinence was ever a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you start a job and you say, I'm going to be a millionaire, and then you never get there, and you get, I think we need to set what they call real goals,
Mm-hmm.
real goals. And the real goal, as you know, even from an abstinence place, is one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
What's tomorrow look like? So no, I don't, for him and for me with him, we never ever talked about abstinence.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was, where abstinence was delivered to him, was in some AA meetings or NA meetings,
Mm.
and where he was actually shamed for being on methadone, because he couldn't say that he was in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, has evolved over time.
It is. I
Yeah.
mean, and I still see comments regularly, people saying Suboxone isn't sober or things of that nature.
Yeah.
I see those as opportunities to educate. Sometimes I take them as opportunities to find acceptance in myself and carry on with my day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is changing though, and it is because, I mean, for me myself, I identify as a program guy, or at least I was. When in my first couple years of recovery, I was definitely a big book thumper. Like I was, definitely going to a lot of meetings. I went up to 2 meetings every day, and that's what I needed at the time. But also in those especially early on, I was that guy that was like, you have to do it this way. If you're on methadone, you're not sober. And that's how I perceived the program. I thought, I didn't go to these people as from what I thought was judgment at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I was helping.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought that, and doing the best with what I knew and what I understood and what I felt at the time. Now, knowing what I know now, that probably wasn't the best strategy for me to go through to help anyone, really. But I know a lot of people now in the program, and in our community, and we have an international community here on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's becoming a more common thread to be like, do what works.
Yeah.
People are dying. Let's stop shaming. Let's just get people to a place of stability.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to see that
Yeah.
I'm really not seeing Suboxone ain't sober very much.
Well, failure shouldn't be in the equation.
No.
And is sober? Well, I guess we could probably just say sober is sober, and if that's the goal, then that's the goal. But recovery is a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ride. That's what I've seen with people.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to be in recovery. And maybe that's the place. That's the goal. And maybe ultimately you can go, yeah, you know what? I'm in recovery, and I can say today I'm sober.
Mm-hmm.
But that can't be a judgment on somebody else that's taken a different route. We have to support anybody in their journey and give them credit for it. I always felt uncomfortable saying to somebody, congratulations in this, because
like for taking a year or whatever. Yeah.
I don't like, it almost seems so small
Yeah.
to say to somebody, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how hard I fought? This isn't an award. Do you say to somebody, congratulations, you got through cancer?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you
Yeah,
do say that.
It's weird.
I mean, like, because sometimes I do say that to people, like,
Yeah.
because we get a lot of people on the daily in the private group on Facebook. If you're not a member of our private group, check it out. It's the Hard Knocks Talks community. We've got 14,000 members. It's a great peer support tool. Like, there's so many active members. But it's all the time. I've got 10 days sober. I've got a year sober.
Yeah.
I've got whatever. Like, it fluctuates, and I struggle saying congratulations. I want to say something more meaningful than
that's
congratulations.
exactly how I feel. The
You know?
same thing is it seems small.
Yeah.
When you've watched somebody, you've actually fought the battle. I watched somebody fight the battle, and it's, you won the swim meet. Congratulations. No, you have no idea. You just went up Mount Everest and back again and survived a storm. And it's a small thing, but yeah. I don't know what we can say, but it is almost a damn miracle when somebody gets through and gets to the other side. And wow, I'm in awe.
It's like someone coming back from war and saying, "Oh, congratulations on not dying."
Getting killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Anyhow, it is an incredible feat. And I can never minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
But what a challenge it is for everybody, every family member, to try to be understanding and support someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep reminding yourself, it's an illness, it's an illness, it's an illness.
Mm-hmm.
It totally changes your brain. It totally changes who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We have to work with people.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about Stronger Together Canada.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm not sure how involved you are with it, but where is like, how has that integrated into Mom Stop the Harm as an organization? Like, is it a separate thing, or is it like sort of like under the umbrella, or what is it?
It's under the umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
We are fortunate enough to have received some national funding to provide. We actually, before that ever happened, we had started to create these. It's more of a fellowship group. We can't say we're a support group. We're not professional, and maybe you can say support, but none of us are psychologists, psychiatrists. We have to be very careful that we're there just to bring fellowship and tell our stories and have commonalities with one another. So we had started it, but then we were able to secure some national funding to expand that network. And what we found initially, we had started. So my role in it really is being the chair of the board. Uh, we have a woman named Tyla who lives in Grand Prairie, Alberta, who manages and looks after the Stronger Together program across Canada. She's amazing. I love her. Anyhow, call out Tyla. I hope you're listening today.
Mm.
Shout out, I guess, is the word. Anyhow, so we had started just the groups for people who had lost someone.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had a lot of families coming in saying, you know, we don't want to lose our person. And when we come to the lost person meeting, it's pretty harsh to listen to those stories when you still have hope.
Mm-hmm.
You start losing hope when you're listening to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
But what they do learn is how to go about it in a much kinder, softer, gentler way.
Mm-hmm.
So we started with the Healing Hope and Healing Hearts and Holding Hope.
Yeah.
So we started with Healing Hearts, and then we migrated into the Holding Hope community across Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have virtual and in-person meetings. And if you go to our website, obviously, as you have noted,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually see where we hold those meetings, but we are in need of facilitators
Mm-hmm.
across Canada because there's a demand
Mm-hmm.
for us to expand the network. And our facilitators, certainly we do have some criteria for a facilitator because you need to be a little bit into your journey
Yeah.
of either healing and grief or having settled for a number of years with someone who's actively using
Mm-hmm.
and you still have hope for them. When you're crushingly in pain, you're not doing yourself any favors by facilitating a group like that because it is painful. It is traumatizing. So if you're interested in helping us facilitate a group anywhere in Canada, please go to our website, momstoptheharm.com, and look at our Healing Heart and Holding Hope and find out what you can. And we'd love to have more facilitators.
Mm-hmm. Got Leslie McBain in the chat. Good morning, Leslie, my friend. Leslie says, I don't think what you're perceiving as an implementation of Safe Supply is actually how it will be, Dan. Love the show. Love the chat. Leslie, I am very eager to learn more. I think I'm right. I think you're right. Like, I think what I am seeing in our society right now, like I don't think that implementing a safe supply will mean seeing giant inflatable pills at family events that say get your fentanyl here. Like that's not what I perceive. Maybe someday that, who's to say? But anyways, Leslie, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Well, one of the biggest opportunities that we have at Mom Stop the Harm is getting out there and educating.
Mm-hmm.
Educating. It's we've just went through strategic planning, and that's one of our highest goals. Is we need to get out and educate, bust the myths aligned with safe supply, safe consumption, and decriminalization, because right now there is a strong push somewhere. We kind of have an idea where, and I know I've talked to you about it, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming from somewhere to destroy the idea that these efforts work.
Mm-hmm.
That to deny that harm reduction is working, deny that safe supply works, deny that safe consumption, deny that decrim works. And it's a strong money-backed effort to push that down. Now, we have an opportunity, and we need to drive that hard over this next 6 months to help dispel the myth of why we should or shouldn't do it. And there maybe is another opportunity. I know Leslie's a busy lady, but maybe she'd be willing to come on and have a good old safe supply chat with you.
Yeah. Leslie, jump on a plane, come on down to Saskatoon. We'll have some sushi and we'll get you in the studio.
She can do virtual, but she's probably right now going, don't be volunteering me for anything else, Marie. But there are others within the organization that could have a really good, solid talk to you about it, that have that understand it, because they've been deeply invested in studying it with the experts in their communities for a number of years. But because there is, we have a war. We had a war on the war on people. Now we have a war on harm reduction. We have somebody battling us, trying to tell us, because not enough people understand what this means. They're still going back to the kitchen table rhetoric from, the neighbor over here says this is what it should be, and I agree with him. Well, what do the experts say? Oh, damn the experts. Just a bunch of people who think they know what they're talking about. I've lived for 45 years and I'm just fine. Why do they need this?
Yeah.
So that's what we have to battle against.
Just taking a quick step back, talking about having these conversations should bring awareness to the event that we're doing at the end of this month on June 29th. Our mutual friend, Dr. Barb Hornsler, is joining Donna and I on stage for a live video podcast production in front of a live audience to talk about safe supply, to dispel these myths as to what it is we're actually advocating for. And other organizations can advocate for whatever they feel is best for them, right?
Yeah.
But I think a conversation like this, and coming into it with a little bit of stigma, coming into it being like, oh, do we want to see this at our family events? Like, I think that is the voice of the people that don't understand.
Right. Ask the hard questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I will do that. And I think the people at Mom Stop the Harm are starting to recognize that, I do ask the questions that are uncomfortable, and I do say the things that people maybe turn their eyes at a little bit, but I do it from a place of understanding and wanting to understand.
Well, that's what these forums are for, Dan, is that we need to get the messaging out there. And if nobody wants to ask the questions in a vibrant environment like this, how are we ever going to dispel it?
And ask the questions in such a way that someone who might not understand would ask them.
Yep. Yeah. We, you and I talk about some different opportunities coming down the pipe here and what we can do to help to educate. And I think that also at Mom Stop, we need to take more advantage of this sort of media, a media type environment where we have little educational forums that are constantly, that we're constantly throwing out there, that they're 30-second bleeps that go, why safe supply? Because this. And it's another thing too, that it's not, we say, well, let's save lives. Let's save lives. We don't want people to die.
Let's do that. How?
But that doesn't resonate with everybody. Yeah, okay, people shouldn't die. But why? My kid's not going to die. That doesn't mean anything to me. So what I have found that really works is that, number one, our stories open doors.
Absolutely.
The collateral that I have, the energy that I have is the death of my son, sadly, and the experiences of watching the other one suffer. And
suffering along with.
Oh,
never mind.
God, we suffer. Your mom, you ask her, did she suffer? Oh, that woman suffered.
I bet. And sometimes she still does.
Yes. But our stories open doors, but they don't sell the house.
That's right.
So what we need next is the why. So we use our stories to get the door open. And then once that door opens, we tell the community, what's important to a community? Safety is important to a community. I want to know when my kid's out at night on her bike or on a skateboard doing whatever she likes to do, she is safe. So how will the things that we advocate make for safer communities? What's not just it's not rhetoric. It's not anecdotal information. We can show how it improves the safety when we stabilize an unstable community. Then the other part of it is, how can it be cost effective? How can harm reduction be cost effective? Well, first of all, if you continually, again, it's that diversification that I talked about from a farmer. If wheat was all you ever grew, and then the prices of wheat change, you need to maybe go and start making lentils. Well, it's time for us to start growing lentils. And because why do we keep doing the same thing over and over
Here's the
again
thing.
and creating
We
a different
still
result?
need wheat.
Yes.
But we also need lentils.
That's right.
Yes.
And why keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're selling the different result. And we're showing, and sometimes you got to put a little money in to make change, right? So again too, tearing a closet apart in your house makes, to get it looking better, it makes a hell of a mess. And then you slowly weed through what's not working anymore for you, and you put it back nice and clean. But it takes time, effort, and some money, because sometimes you got to replace the towels. So that's what we're doing. But the community at large doesn't understand. And the only way to get them to understand is really two methods. One is through government. Now, depending on the government at the time, if it doesn't sell, politicians work for votes. And if their base doesn't want to understand, if for the political world, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So we're still getting the votes. Why would we give up a single vote by trying to sell something that our basic population of voters doesn't want to buy? Because they don't, because the sad story of a mom losing a kid it's not enough. So within the other way that we have the opportunity we have is this: your voice, my voice, Mom Stop the Harm, the frontline organizations that are working with persons, that how do we get to those families behind closed doors that are hiding it? Those are the opportunities
in a productive way.
In a productive way.
Yes.
That we can't be saying we need it. We just need it. We need safe supply. Why do we need safe supply?
Yeah. And what does safe supply look like?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So right now, that's the biggest challenge, I think, for our organization is dispelling the myths, but having to do it at such a large scale that we impact the decision of the voter.
Voters make better decisions when they have better information.
Yeah, and they got to want the information.
Yeah.
And how are they going to want it? We have to sell them that we're going to help change your life. We're going to help change the lives of the children in your family, the people that you love. We want you to be healthier. We want our streets to be safer, and we want to save money in healthcare. We want the same things you do. We're not just a bunch of broken hearts going out there saying we don't want anybody's kid to die. Yeah, well, we don't. But it's more than that. It's bigger.
Here's
than
some
that.
knowledge, and here's how, and here's why, and here's what it could look like.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's truthfully, when we go on the 6 o'clock news and say we want to take away the barriers to what are now known as illicit substances, people don't like, what? That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So we need to have these conversations. So yes. Is there anything that we missed?
No, I think that in summary, please, out there anywhere, do what you can to read about safe supply, read about it, understand about it. There's working models around the world. We're not talking about at this point having arbitrary drugs, as Dan set up at a football field. There's the giant pill you can go get your purple flavored fentanyl from. We want to help stabilize communities of people so that they get a chance to reintegrate into their families. They get a chance to grow self-esteem, perhaps through some vocation. We just want to give people their lives back and families their people back.
We want to broaden the spectrum of care. All right, everyone. We had some technical problems, and this is the end of our stream today. We're not going to be able to say goodbye to Marie because she's not here anymore. So I just wanted to throw this in to be sort of a closer. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please check us out on YouTube. We are going to move all of our live streams to YouTube in the future. Our Sunday night lives are already exclusively available on YouTube. So please check us out there. Give us a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.